SEC media days this week, and really Greg Sankey and the things he had to say, kind of the highlights for me. So wanted to get into that. He was talking from that podium with his chest puffed out, and I would say displayed some serious confidence. And one of the things he said that stood out to me, Ted, was he said the SEC, they're not going to panic because the Big Ten added UCLA and USC. He got a nice jab in there about the footprint of their conference actually making sense, which I thought was pretty good. But I think that he feels very confident in the SEC's current position. That being said, he said, "Hey, we're monitoring everything, but seems like Sankey feels pretty good about where the Southeastern Conference is moving forward."
Yeah, and I agree with him. I think Texas and Oklahoma are way better than USC and UCLA. I know I just talked about how bad Texas has sucked over the last decade. It's true, but so have UCLA and USC. Oklahoma's actually been really relevant. So, and I do think that the footprint matters. Everyone is drooling at the mouth over the West Coast untapped potential with college football fans, but I don't know. I think that can be really difficult to re-engage that group with college football. We'll see what happens, but yeah, Sankey sounds like he believes that the SEC is in a really good spot, which it makes you feel good about the current situation. It also makes you wonder, what does he have up his sleeve that we don't know about right now?
Yeah, but he's saying this, but what's he scheming up? Yeah, what's he's that part of me felt that way as well. But one of the other things he talked about that clearly is still bothering him is the fact that the college football playoff expansion didn't happen. And I think he was trying to send a message saying he'd be fine with no automatic qualifiers. Hey, just give us the best teams, right? Whether it's 4 teams, 8 teams, 12 teams, let's just do the best teams. Because he said it, and this has been his message all along, is that, conference champions getting automatic bids, that was a compromise from the SEC. And it was a compromise they were willing to make. And it was a compromise that the alliance rejected. So, I mean,
they pretty
as far
much
as
rejected everything. Right? They didn't want any proposal thrown forward.
Yeah, and as far as college football playoff expansion, and I truly believe Greg Sankey wants what is best for the whole of college football, or at least maybe not the whole, maybe as many people as possible. I do think he sounds like a guy that may be over compromising at this point, like with the situation that they're in, with how much leverage it feels like the SEC's got.
Yeah, well, I don't know. The interesting thing and what I don't know is, what do they say about the potential revenue of these different scenarios? Right. Just my instinct is that the college football playoff has been really good. Now the viewership has dwindled as they've gone on because it's the same teams every year, right? And the novelty of it has slowly faded away. That first college football playoff was like the greatest thing ever. So that's faded a bit, but I still believe that the more teams you get in, the better it is for college football. And I also think the more teams you get in from different regions, the better. You need to engage everyone. That's why the automatic qualifier, it's not the perfect system. And I understand that if you win the AAC, it's not the same as winning the SEC. I'm not an idiot. I understand that. But I also understand that it needs to have some type of fairness to it. If you win your conference and there's a playoff, there needs to be some type of tie-in. And I think it's so much better for the entirety of college football, if you engage, the more fan bases you engage, the better it is. You know, there's not a perfect way to do it. I mean, there's no exact line as to who the best 12 teams are. I mean, there's just not. You can argue about that every single year because there's so many teams and so many, like there's not hardly any crossover from conferences. Like when you're talking about Power Five, each of the big dogs usually has like maybe one crossover with another Power Five in a non-conference game. Like that's not enough to actually really determine who the best 12 teams are.
Yeah, and I heard Saban talk about it with Josh Pate of 24/7 Sports, where he would like there to be some type of RPI system, where I guess the net ranking, right? The college basketball uses, where you're not necessarily punished for playing a really good schedule, right? Like that is weighted into your ranking. Like even if you lose against a good team, like you don't get rewarded for losing, but you don't get punished severely for scheduling really good teams and then, losing some of those games. That would be awesome if we could get to that point. And some people want to point out, well, wasn't that kind of like the BCS? I mean,
well, a lot of people, that's what I was just about to say. A lot of people would like to take the old BCS formula and just have that predict your 8 or 12 or whatever playoff teams.
Yeah. I don't know, but yeah, it was interesting hearing Sankey talk about that. And you mentioned that he did not hesitate when asked, hey, is the SEC better with Oklahoma and Texas than the Big Ten now that they've added UCLA and USC? He said yes real quickly. And he was asked about the possibility of OU and Texas going to the SEC early, and he said it's not up to him. It's up to OU and Texas and the relationship with the Big 12. And Joe Castiglione and Chris Del Conte were quoted this week as saying, hey, the plan is making the move in 2025. So that's still the messaging we're getting, Ted. I don't see any way how OU and Texas aren't in the SEC in 2024, but with what Sankey and Castiglione and Del Conte have said, that is what we are still led to believe. 2025 is the year.
And I wouldn't expect them to say, like, if the announcement is made or leaked or whatever within the next 10 days, I wouldn't expect Josie or Del Conte to answer a question any differently than they did. Right. It's just how you have to do it whenever there's a lot of legalese going on and tens of millions of dollars on the line in negotiations. Like you can't go in and undercut that process. And here's the fact of the matter. Like I've heard there's a whole lot of smoke coming from a bunch of different places that this is OU's last year in the Big 12. I have a tendency to believe that, but I also have the thought that I feel like is realistic and probably true that Joe C maybe doesn't even know right now. He probably has a leaning and there's some negotiations going on, but he may not even know for sure when it's going to happen.
Yeah.